historic aircraft for more than 65 years. CAF's mission is to educate, inspire, and honor through flight and living history experiences, and you can support CAF through donations, membership, or by volunteering your time and talents. Visit commemorativeairforce.org for more information. I'm your host, Steve Buss, and welcome to everyone watching tonight. Welcome if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or those of you watching on GoToMeeting. Glad to have you along with us tonight. If you would just take a second to like, share, subscribe, or follow us, that would be great. We would like to keep you up to date on interesting shows we've got coming in the future, like the one we have tonight. And we're going to go inside the EAA Eagle Hangar in Oshkosh, Wisconsin with Chris Henry. And he's going to tell us about some of the things that are new in the Eagle Hangar that you might want to check out the next time you go to visit. Now, before we dive into our topic, if you have some questions for Chris about the Eagle Hangar, EAA, or CAF, we'll try to save some time at the end to answer those questions. So just type them in the comment box. Leah Block is monitoring our social media channels, and she'll send those questions up to me, and we'll relay them to Chris. So with that, Chris Henry joining us now live from the Eagle Hangar. And Chris, welcome, and thanks for
Well,
taking time to join us tonight.
well, absolutely. My pleasure and honor. Thank you so much. Honored to be on the show and to help support anything the CAF's doing. I always say the CAF was saving airplanes way before it was cool. So
That's
something
true.
I'm very proud of.
Well, Chris, tell us a little bit about your background. You've been with the EAA about 9 years now, but how did you get so interested in aviation?
As a kid, I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, so go Steelers. Even though we had an interesting season, my house was on the approach to Pittsburgh Airport, and planes would fly over the backyard, and wasn't long before Legos, and then the short addiction jumped to model airplanes, which I'm still fighting, and I just never wanted to do anything else, and um, I take it back. I wanted to work construction when I was a little kid, and when I started getting enamored with airplanes, construction got kind of pushed off, and wanted to be involved with airplanes. Um, Started volunteering at a little local air museum called Air Heritage, just north of Pittsburgh at Beaver Falls. I was 12 when I started doing that, and the men and women there, I really owe a lot, because it could have been very easy to just push a 12-year-old off and say, hey, come back in a couple years. But instead, they took the time to take me under their wing, and something I'll never be able to fully repay them for. So I knew I wanted to be involved with airplanes. I just didn't know what. Went to college to become an air traffic controller. Was a medical helicopter dispatcher in Pittsburgh, and then did become ATC out in Indiana. And I did that for about 5 years. And I had been bit by the bug here in Oshkosh when I was 16. I came here with Claire Paisley and some friends, and I was like, my God, what I thought was the coolest thing about Oshkosh was you're out on the grounds. There's airplanes that you've only ever seen in books, and there's no ropes around them. You can walk up, you can poke your head in a gear well or something like that, or you talk to the pilot, maybe take a peek in the cockpit. There were also no ropes around the heroes. You could come here and be in line behind Scott Crossfield getting ice cream or something like that, and to me, that was just truly special. And I always told people that this is where I wanted to work. To me, this was Disney World for pilots. It was also still I think there's something special where it was really isn't this stuff cool? And at the same token, it was, oh, and by the way, we want you to come be part of this. You're welcome to join us. Told my wife a job had opened about 9 years ago, and I asked my wife. I said, I know it's a leap to move up to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, but it'd be pretty amazing. And she'd come to me before with me to the show, and she was like, her exact words were, "How many times you get a chance to go work at Disney World? So let's go for it." And I've loved every second of it.
Well, you've certainly immersed yourself not only with the aircraft and the museum, but also with the veterans and stories of the veterans. We'll talk more about that later. But right now, let's actually start out with that gorgeous P38 that's right behind you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the P38 behind me is, and what I'll do is I'll flip this around so y'all can see it a little bit better. Bear with me. I'm old guy technology. So
There you go.
uh, this is our Lockheed P38 Lightning. This aircraft is painted in the markings of Richard Bong's aircraft. Richard Bong is from Poplar, Wisconsin, and is America's highest scoring ace with 40 victories. Marge was his girlfriend, then later wife, from the same area. And Marge and Steve, this is something you might remember. Marge used to come here during the air shows.
That's right. Yep.
The first time I ever met her, she was sitting under the wing here, signing autographs. Just a nice lady. This airplane was a P38L. At one point, and in some references, you'll see it referred to as an M. It was slated to become an M or a night fighter, but it never got the conversion. So this airplane spent its life as a mapping aircraft. The nose that you're looking at with the guns to make it the fighter nose, this actually joined the restoration. And this was from the set. This is from a P38E, and this is actually from the set of A Guy Named Joe. This is where we got the fighter nose from. This airplane actually spent time with the CAF. At one point, was actually flown by Lefty Gardner a few times. We have it in the logbook here. So, just a beautiful airplane. It's one of my favorites in the museum. Anybody that knows me knows if I'm missing, I'm probably out here. So, do you want me to go ahead and take a walk around the Eagle Hangar with everybody?
Sure. Let's go for it.
So here's something interesting. A lot of people don't know this. So these numbers on the nose. 993 is the last three of the serial number of the airplane. The 597, this was racking people's brain as to what that was. What that was is that's a Lockheed production number that was on the airplane at the factory, and it just never took off. So that was just a number for it going down the assembly line. So, but this is the P38, of course, famous for serving not only in the European theater, but I mean, became kind of the stuff of a legend out in the Pacific theater. Let's see here. So, Steve, as I'm walking around, these are probably bringing back some great memories for you here.
Oh, certainly.
One of the things that, it's something small, but it's something I'll touch on, is this car. And it's just a Ford staff car that Ford built during the war. And it doesn't look like anything special, but what I try to tell people is, I actually love these cars. So to me, I do kind of geek out on these. But to me, this was how America won World War II. Everybody built something for the war effort. And, Ford Motor Company, this was their contribution. They were making cars. They started making military vehicles. Of course, they would later build B-24 Liberators and Jeeps and everything else. But it was that kind of turn of production that really helped win the war. As we come across here, these are some of our goodies here in the hangar we'll talk about. We just talked about this last night, though, and I'll bring this up again. If you were on the EA webinar, this is the XP-51 Mustang. So this aircraft is the fourth aircraft that was being built. What's interesting about it is it's the oldest surviving Mustang in the world. This is one of the two that the Army Air Corps actually used for evaluation to see if they were going to want to buy the P-51. This airplane was tested, spent most of its life at Wright Field and Langley, those two areas. And then eventually was placed in storage out in Freeman Field, Indiana. A couple other shifts, Chicago, just outside Chicago, Illinois. And then eventually at Silver Hill, and then was traded with Paul Poberezny. Northrop Alphas, a couple of projects, Northrop Alphas were given to the Smithsonian, and we got this. Just beautiful. I mean, we're really lucky to have this aircraft.
Quite a trade.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm just going to say I would have taken that deal. So,
right.
Next to it, we have the P-51D. Paul won. This was Paul's personal P-51 Mustang. This is the airplane he used to open and close the show. One of the things I love having them side by side, because I always like to tell people, this is what North American thought they were going to have to build for World War II. And then this is what they eventually had to build for World War II. The aircraft in combat would lead to the developments that you'd see in the D model Mustang here. Again, Paul's name, of course, on the aircraft. Anybody that's been here to the show, especially back in the 80s and 90s, had seen this airplane fly. What's amazing to me is there's a lot of local people in the community that will come out and just say, I had to ride in it once, and I'm like, really? How? And they were like, I was just standing there as a kid, and Paul pulled up to the ramp. I was just like, hey, kid, you want to ride in a Mustang? And he gave me a P-51 ride. And there's like numerous stories of Paul doing that. It's really cool. I think he just liked to fly.
He did indeed.
Yes, absolutely. This is our WASP exhibit. Steve, you want me to walk in here for a minute?
Sure, that'd be great. This is one of the newer exhibits in the Eagle Hangar.
It is, yes. So this features obviously the women who flew the combat aircraft off the production lines to the bases. We got really lucky. We found out that there was a local woman who was a WASP. She's from Appleton, and her family actually placed on long-term loan a lot of her personal attire and gear and artifacts. Just really neat. But just gives you an idea of where all these women were flying, the stations they flew from. I think one of my favorite quotes in here is it says the WASP were a weapon waiting to be used. I thought that was really pretty cool. We also honor those who broke the barriers with different nationalities flying, as well as pay tribute to the WASP that gave their lives in the program. Something special to the CAF, of course, being operators of one of two only flying B-29s, is that WASP actually flew the B-29 in a special experiment, if you will, basically to prove that the B-29 was a good airplane. There was an all-female crew that flew, so kind of neat. Also, that's Paul Tibbets at the far left in that picture, so also famous for his B-29 operations. But the WASP were eventually given veteran status and eventually a congressional gold medal, and we have that gold medal right there. And then we tried to recreate a little bit of the Avenger Field feel here. And then, of course, they help pave the way for the women flying today that we like to honor. So wanted to make sure we called that out. So we'll go back out into the Eagle Hangar.
And now it's interesting. The Eagle Hangar itself was one of the major additions to the EAA museum, and opened in 1989. Was it 89 or 90?
I think you're right. I think it was 89.
Yeah.
Originally, one of the deals was it was going to be both a museum edition as well as maintenance for the B-17.
Right.
So we've had, and the B-17 actually was, for the most part, I don't want to say restored because it came in as a flying airplane, but it was put back into a more proper military condition here. But it was pretty cool. Like you could actually come to the museum and pay and go through the B-17. It's awesome having our B-17 on tour, but I won't lie. I see the pictures of that. I'm jealous. Like that looks super cool to have the 17 in here. This is a Thomas More Scout, World War I training aircraft. What's super cool about this is original, real deal. This is not a replica. This thing is absolutely beautiful airplane. We're eventually actually redoing this area into a proper World War I exhibit. We're gonna do some sandbags and things like that and really try to dress it up a little bit. So I just love the propellers, like the woodwork and stuff like that on these old propellers. As a model builder, I am a plastic model builder. All the rigging and stuff just stands out to me. I'm like, my gosh, it makes me want to go home and start working on a model, but it's hard to get that rigging right.
And one of our viewers has just asked a question. It's like, where did EAA obtain all these aircraft? Are they donated? Do they buy them?
No, so they were all privately donated. There are some that are on loan. It's a very small amount. We only have a few that are on loan from the Air Force Museum. Most of those are gate guards outside. So the aircraft we have here were privately donated by different individuals. Connie Edwards was one who donated the P38, the Corsair, and the Bouchon, which I'll show you guys here in a few minutes. Really lucky. Each airplane, as we're kind of going through our webinar series, each airplane has its own story, which is it kind of backs up my thought process that airplanes have a soul. And it's just amazing how some of these survived Some of them in the post-year wars were mistreated. And I always say it's kind of like bringing in rescuing a dog. You know, you rescued a Grumman duck instead and brought it in from the cold. So really, you know, just thrilled to have some of these aircraft here. This airplane is a World War II veteran. It's not a combat veteran that we could find, but it is a World War II era veteran. J2F Duck, of course, rescue airplane, sort of a COD airplane, if you will, carrier on demand type stuff. Beautiful airplane. This is one of the ones used in Murphy's War. I believe there was 3, and I think 2 or 3, but we actually found a picture of this airplane with the N number on it in the Murphy's War paint job. So this is one of the ones used in the movie. We can't really tell which scenes or anything like that. I think the primary filming aircraft was the one that's in the Air Force Museum now.
Okay.
But this was another one of them. And I don't know if Kermit's was there or not. I can't remember.
Okay. Well, and our viewers are enjoying what they're seeing, but they're asking if you can go just a little slower so they can get a good look at everything.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Absolutely.
So if you go back to the duck, that was actually
Yeah.
a flying aircraft when it was retired into the museum. It flew at as it was called, the convention or Oshkosh back in the 80s, I believe.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I've never seen it
Yeah.
fly. Oh, that's super cool. I just think it's cool. Like it's an amphib. I mean, I think that's super neat that you've got this capability of landing on water and on land, and yet you're still doing it looking cool in a Warbird. I think that's pretty cool. Just a neat machine. Let's see here. So next is the F-86 Sabre. This aircraft came to us from the Combat Jets Museum, and you know, it's actually a Canadair built one, which had what a lot of F-86 owners will say is the better engine. I won't get into that debate because I don't know, but we have it painted. This airplane's carried a few different markings over the years, and I'm really proud of the markings it wears right now. We'll go to the other side. The first markings I've ever seen it in were the Huff, which had a big sort of dragon painted on the side. And then it got repainted at some point, I think, for a reunion, and it just said Gabby on the side, and it was painted in honor of Gabby Gabreski's aircraft. And then a few years ago, we had the markings changed, and it picked up the name My Darling Marta. And if you guys look at the canopy rail up there, you'll notice the name. It's painted as an aircraft flown by Gene Kranz, who went on to, of course, become the famous mission control director and flight director in the NASA program, and of course, Apollo 13 fame. So we surprised him with this. He didn't know that we were going to do it. He came to the air show, and we drove him up to the airplane. So we lied. We asked him for pictures of the airplane because we said we were making a model. And I was really proud of getting to do this. This was really cool to get to honor one of my heroes with the paint job that his aircraft carried. By the way, Marta is still, they're still together and doing great. And Gene says, I still don't have my own airplane because, Marta basically says this is hers because her name's on it. So next up is the MiG-15, which, this airplane basically is what led to the F-86 getting pushed into combat. Toward the beginning of the Korean War, the MiG started to show up, and that really changed the air war in Korea. Up till then, you sort of had some prop-driven aircraft, sort of still dogfighting it out. As a matter of fact, the first kill of Korea, American, air-to-air, was a twin Mustang that shot down, I think it was like an LA-7 or something like that. So it was a Yak or an LA-7, I can't remember. But when the MiG came on the scene, suddenly the straight-wing jets that we had, like the F-84 and the P-80, and we were still using the F-51 at that time, they couldn't really catch up with the MiG. So F-86 had test flown in 49. They did have a couple units of them, but none of them were combat ready. and they really pushed those into service. I mean, within like a month or two, they had these things ready to go. So we have them kind of displayed side by side here. And this MiG came to us from the Combat Jets collection as well.
Yeah, that is a nice display where you can really see the lines between the two.
Yeah,
Of course, the MiG being a lot smaller than the F-86, but still very very similar look to both aircraft.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Hugh Gibson actually flew this one. He was just
Yeah,
telling us about here, and that this this is a real deal Russian MiG. It's not. There were some rumors that this was not a Russian built one,
right.
but it is. So
Yeah, it's one of the few.
yeah, oh yeah.
And
Um,
one of the questions that's popped up a couple of times here is people are wondering if any of the airplanes that are in the Eagle hangar are still airworthy. Just the ones that I'm seeing right here, I know the MiG, the F-86, and the Duck were all airworthy when they came into the Eagle hangar, and but they have not been on flying status for a number of years. Although you're showing us the P-64, which was just on flying status not too long ago.
absolutely. So you're correct. Yeah, the jets haven't flown in many years. As a matter of fact, I don't think that the and you probably know this more than I would, Steve, because you were here before me. But I'm not sold that there was ever an actual effort to fly the jets, except for the F-104.
Right.
Yes, we had an F-104, and we did
Mhm.
fly it for a while. And I think the intent all along was to have these aircraft on display in the museum. Um, the the prior museum that had them before us did indeed fly these aircraft a lot.
Right.
Um, they had like an A4. They had a lot of stuff. Um, and then we they were donated to us. We kept them in great condition, but I just don't think that was ever what we were intended to do with them.
Right.
The F-104, like I said, we did fly that for a while, which I would desperately love to see. That would be a great
Yeah.
tour airplane. So
Yeah, the aircraft came from the Combat Jets Museum. Jim Robinson was the founder of that, and yeah, they all flew in almost one right after another, and were donated. I believe you are correct. The intention was to fly some of them, the 104 being one, and there was a side by side trainer, which escapes me now. It was a
like,
Canadian markings.
oh, okay, okay. I know
Um,
we had a Hawker Hunter.
Right, the Hawker Hunter. There's A4, the
Uh,
MiG 21, the MiG 15. But I think the one of the reasons they were donated was just because of the increasing cost of maintenance and keeping them operational. And I think EAA, when it took the collection, said they would try as best as EAA could to keep them in airworthy condition, but and if they could to fly them. And you know, going back in the memory files here, I'm thinking they may have flown that first year at AirVenture. There may have been a couple that were flying, but for the most part, you're right. They ended up being great display pieces in the Eagle Hangar.
Absolutely, and we're good caretakers of them. I will point out the P-51D, Paul. That aircraft,
Right.
we had that running, and it was part of the show. We didn't fly it down the road. There, that's something you could see happen, but we did have it running and taxiing. It led the Mustang parade that year. And we'll talk about the P-64 here in a minute. Right now, I'm showing you guys the L5. That is a liaison aircraft that would be used for helping spot tanks, artillery, things like that, just to help the ground forces. L-bird pilots never really got the spotlight or the credit. You don't really see any Hollywood movies that say, the L-bird strike at dawn or anything like that. But, you know, the crews that flew these aircraft, I think were just extremely brave. I mean, to get into an airplane, to me, it's the same as like during Vietnam, the FACT guys, that they were basically flying. They're basically civilian GA airplanes, and you're flying them over combat and hostile skies. That's pretty brave steps in my book. So this was actually Buck Hilbert's airplane. He donated to us, and this is displayed. Buck actually flew L5s in end of World War II. I think maybe in Korea as well. And then he went on to become an airline pilot. So, but this was his airplane.
Well, of course, I mean, the Battle of the Battle of the Bulge movie.
Oh, well,
The climax on that is
yeah,
that's where the L bird takes its spotlight.
that's true. That's true. I absolutely. Well, and then here we have our Northrop P-64. So the P-64 was North Americans' attempt to make an export fighter. I won't say it was based on the T-6, but sure is a lot of T-6 lines in it. The NA-50 was probably the closest production airplane to this. They only built a few of them, and then in October 1940, the government basically says no more exporting of aircraft like this. So these few aircraft were basically never shipped. They were remarked in Army Air Corps markings and then used as training airplanes, field hacks, currency aircraft. And this is the only one surviving. This is the only P-64 left in the world. There is a very close aircraft, an NA-50. There's one on a pole that's a true NA-50. There's a couple T-6s modified to look like NA-50s. I'm not sure if there are any true NA-50s around. This is I want to say it's an NA, geez. I don't want to script the designation. I can't remember if it's like an NA-68 or something like that. It has a different designation. But this is the only one left of this type. The nose art panels above, I know some people asked, those are not authentic. Those are set dressing that we made in-house. So those are not authentic, cut. Not like the ones we had on loan here from the CAF. We actually had the CAF nose art collection here for many years. And that was truly, truly special to get to be near those panels, all of which, except for I think one, saw combat. Just something else. This is our engine shop area where we just tried to mock up what an engine shop would look like. But at the same token, these engines are actually are parts for some of the various aircraft in the collection. But this is kind of your idea of if you work in a shop, this is a little bit of what it looks like. Now, we're going to step ahead from World War II for a little bit and talk about Vietnam. And in the Eagle Hangar was originally designed to honor World War II. And what started to be pressed upon us is we really need to do something to honor those who served in Vietnam as well. And when, you can see the footprint of how much room we have here. This is just one hangar of our museum. The rest of it, there's a more museum yet in here. But, we said, we really have to do something for Vietnam veterans, and we need to get an aircraft. What kind of aircraft can we fit in here? And which aircraft would be the most iconic? And I think the easy answer of what is the most iconic aircraft out of Vietnam, we could talk F4s, F-105s, and Sky Raiders, but let's face it, the Huey everybody was around the Huey at one point or another in Vietnam. We knew we were really going to have one shot at getting a Huey, one crack at this. We wanted to get it right. Thanks to Dave and Paula Barron down in Glendale, Arizona with Light Horse Legacy. They donated this B model. It's a Bravo model. And this one is a 3-tour combat vet from Vietnam. This aircraft was a gunship. And when we got it, it was what I would call a slick configuration. It came in with no weapons or anything on it. And that is when we were very lucky to have a gentleman step forward and say, Pat Rogers is his name, and Pat said, I have all the weapons, let's get them on there. So we actually have the aircraft configured just like this one was in Vietnam. We matched the crew photos. In the exhibit, the crew has donated their scrapbooks, and we had them digitized. So in the exhibit, when you look up here, that photo will start changing, and it's all the pictures that they've donated to us. And then also, I'll show you this in a minute here, but one of the funny things, this aircraft is armed with M60 machine guns, one in each door, the rockets, the rocket tubes, and then the miniguns, one on each side. Funny thing about this.
Is that what I think that is?
Yes. So in one of the photos, we noticed a can of Schlitz and a can of PBR beer sticking out of the rocket tubes. And we're like, what on earth were those for? So we asked the crew and they said, well, you know, we'd fly a mission, we'd be done with it. And so when we were done flying and we were coming home, we'd stick the beer in the rocket tubes so that we'd have cold beer when we landed. So just a little add to add authenticity, we put the beer cans back in the rocket tubes. The crew and some members of the crew actually came forward and helped us outfit the cockpit or the cabin to match the photos of this aircraft during Vietnam. So we have everything right back where it was, just as the crew had it. That's a Maine state flag hanging up. One of our door gunners was from Maine. One of our door gunners drank Coke. So we actually have a 1960s era Coke can. If you want to go to a weird place on the internet, go to start researching Coke or can collectors. And man, I asked a question in a forum on there and they were like, no, you need the C model can from 1968. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but you know, sounds good. And they were like, oh, we'll just send you one. We know where we can get one, you know. The tower here is actually constructed by Steve Taylor, who is, you know, I think he, you know, give Steve Taylor a couple volunteers and he can like do anything. And he actually made a replica of the tower that was at Soc Trang where this aircraft was based. And he did such a great job. He actually had his crew weather the paint job so it looks like the photos. And when we started showing veterans pictures, they were asking, how did we manage a trip over to get their tower? They thought that was the real tower out of Soc Trang. So that's how good of a job he did. Coming around the front, our aircraft was in the 121st Vikings. Their aircraft all had Viking artwork. Our aircraft did have a name and it had alternative nose art. We do have a panel with that nose art on it. It was a pinup girl. And then the name of the aircraft was the Good Widow, Mrs. Jones. Thanks to Pima Air and Space Museum, who actually had our original pilot's helmet in their collection. They donated the helmet to us or put on loan the helmet to us. This is his actual flight suit. And then give me 1 second. I'm going to move a barrier so I can get you guys a little behind the scenes here. And I'll show you the nose art and logos on the helmets were all hand painted in Soc Trang. And this is the real deal helmet. This one was painted in Soc Trang. And I don't know if you could hear it. We took a poll and we asked the guys what was their favorite music they listened to. Our crew chief donated his original transistor radio from the war that didn't work anymore. And we put modern MP3 player in it. And let me see if you can hear that. These boots are made for walking, and that's just what they'll do. One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you. So there's about an hour and a half worth of Armed Forces Network programming in that radio. We asked the crew what their favorite meat or food was, and they said that this was their favorite sea ration, spaghetti with beef chunk. I got to tell you, as an Italian, I'm offended that even exists. That sounds awful. But we put it in the aircraft. Here's something if you were in Vietnam, you might pick up on. So the M60 had a problem with its ammo jamming. So if it would basically become squared off, the ammo would just fall straight. So guys in the field would start putting their empty sea ration cans, they'd wire them to the side and would give the ammo a little something to help feed into the gun. So we did that. This one is beans with meatballs and tomato sauce. So, but that is apparently an extremely authentic detail. Something else I'm proud of. Let me show you guys this. So this aircraft is not restored. This is original condition from Vietnam. This aircraft never flew again after Vietnam. It was shipped home and then straight to the boneyard. So when you look at stuff like this is all dirt and scratches and everything from its time in Vietnam. The pilots who've been in this said this is extremely how they remember the Hueys. Hueys were more like Jeeps, not P-51s, they said. So, so we're really proud of this aircraft. let me show you guys this. We do have, oh, hold on one second. Let's try this. So we have cool cigarettes and a Zippo lighter. That Zippo has the Viking logo on it. Zippo did those for us. And yes, that's an ashtray. Hueys were built with ashtrays, believe it or not. So gotta love that. Something else we've been doing is we're having Vietnam veterans, especially helicopter guys, sign the inside door. And it's just really cool to see some of where they were. And just really cool. The doors on the inside of this one are black, so we're gonna keep going and have them sign it up for us.
Chris, how long did it take to put this? This is the newest exhibit in the Eagle Hangar. About how long did it take to pull this all together?
It took about 1.5 years. Now, keep in mind that was also while we were locked down working from home during the early months of COVID, which made things a little bit more challenging. But you know, and then of course, but yeah, it's about 1.5 years. One thing is we didn't want to just plop this down in the floor and say, well, here's a Huey. You know, here we talk about Vietnam. You know, we wanted to give this home. You know, we wanted to give these guys a place to come and show, you know, their loved ones where they were in Vietnam. And the 50-gallon drums, the reason those are there is because that's how the base use drums as a revetment, the ammo boxes. They would use them to park the aircraft. Every museum has to have models, right? So we have models of some of the aircraft flown in Vietnam, different helicopters. Another local gentleman who was a veteran, Mr. Weiler, actually was also a Viking. So he donated all of his items to us as well. And one of the things I did not expect, we put this panel up in the exhibit. And this is all of Wisconsin's fallen that passed away or were killed in Vietnam. What I didn't expect is to come out here and see people taking pictures of names, leaving flowers, things like that behind for their loved one. It's really, really cool. You know, we just did this as a tribute. We didn't realize it would have the emotions that it did. And then this is a little bit about the restoration of the aircraft. This is how she looked when they first got her. And actually, while we're here, you can see in this picture in Vietnam, it had a few rough landings, but you can actually see that other artwork I was telling you about. There's the good widow name. So, how you doing? Oh, it's just me. I'm doing a live webinar. How are you doing? Yep, yep, absolutely. I'll give you a call. Thanks. So I'll show you guys one more thing here. It's kind of neat piece of history. So this here was painted on the 121st Hueys and probably other units as well. And what that means is that's in Vietnamese, it means extreme danger because the tail rotor's right there. So they didn't want enemy or friendly troops who didn't necessarily speak English to get in there. So they painted it in their home language, which I thought was kind of a cool touch here.
As long as we're on the tail there, one of our viewers just said, why would they use magnesium for the tail of the Huey? Is that something you know?
I don't know why they did that originally, but I know that it did not hold up very well, especially in the humid climate of Vietnam. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot of corrosion and bolt holes in this aircraft, which I'll show you some. But yes, absolutely right. These are magnesium tails. And you can see how it, you know, it didn't really like the humidity over in Vietnam. Okay, so we're near a Huey, so you got to hear this song, right? So everybody always laughs. The CCR song is overplayed in Vietnam. However, when I asked every group of Vietnam veterans what song had to be in there, they all agreed that that song needed to be in that radio. So,
of course,
yeah. And then this is the actual manual from our pilot. This is Brian's aircraft manual that he actually had. So what I really love about this is a lot of the equipment on board the aircraft is original to this aircraft. I could sit here and talk about this thing all night. I'm really, really proud that we got a Huey, that we're paying respects to our Vietnam veterans, and what better of an aircraft to do it with than a 3-tour combat vet.
Indeed. Have you had veterans have reaction to the exhibit and to the aircraft?
Absolutely. We had a gentleman who was standing right up here by the nose, and he had his hand just across the barrier on the nose the one day, and a security person was like, "Hey, maybe I should tell him to step back." And I checked it out, and he was having an emotional moment. And when I saw him later, I just kind of let him be. I saw him later, and I asked him about it, and he said it was like seeing an old buddy, And he said I hadn't seen one since 1969 and up close, and this was like seeing an old friend. So we get a lot of that. We had another gentleman who came in and told us that he used to like to sit on the floor, basically right where this ammo can is, and so we had him sit right back there again, and had his feet just out on the skids, and he said, "Geez, I'm back in 1968." He had the music playing and everything. It just just brought back a lot of hopefully the good memories. I know it brings back some of the bad sometimes, but we're here to talk about that, and I think at the very least we've created a place here where you can come in year round and be near a Huey, be near something that you can release some of that, a pressure valve that you can talk about where you were, what you did in Vietnam. This doesn't look like a very good exhibit, right? So this is our aircraft carrier exhibit. You can see there's some construction going on, and there's no Corsair here. This is usually where our Corsair is. So what we found out beginning of the year was that our Corsair, we didn't really know the history of it a lot. What we had told, here's what we were told. We were told that the aircraft had done a cruise maybe during Korea on the USS Boxer, and that didn't really do anything. Went on to become a Reno air racer, and then that was it. So we're like, okay, well, that's something, and we still have a Corsair. It's really cool. Well, what we found out through research is our aircraft was actually assigned on the USS Leyte, and it was in VF-32 during Korea. And what the airplane did was it was actually part of a really neat moment in time. Jesse Brown, America's first African-American naval aviator, was flying a combat mission, December 1950. He is shot down by ground fire, and his wingman, Tom Hudner, crash lands his Corsair on purpose to try to save Jesse. Jesse passes in the rescue attempt due to hypothermia and probably internal injuries. Tom gets rescued by a helicopter, and he comes home. He's awarded the Medal of Honor, and then told to get a replacement airplane for the one that he lost in Korea. And he draws from the replacement pool our airplane. So our airplane is then assigned to VF-32. It then is there for several months. It's flown by all of Jesse's friends. There's that new movie and book out called Devotion. Our aircraft was flown by all of the key players of that movie. And then the airplane is given the VF-33, and it goes on a Mediterranean cruise on the USS Leyte, and then comes home, gets surplused out, eventually becomes a Reno air racer. It's never modified. It's raced as stock. And then Connie Edwards eventually donates it to us. So the airplane is over in the restoration hangar at Weeks Hangar, being restored and having those markings from VF-32 placed back on it. So in another month or two, you're going to see a much different airplane out here. And we're really proud of it. The chance to have a Corsair and its original markings from Korea, and it was flown by a Medal of Honor recipient. It's truly going to be a special exhibit. And the exhibit around it, we're remodifying that carrier deck to look like the USS Leyte. So that's kind of what's going on. Speaking of Navy planes, look at this guy. This is an F-4F Wildcat. This aircraft is actually on loan to us from Rod Lewis. This airplane spent I think close to 40 or 50 years under Lake Michigan, and then was raised. Terrace Cinco was very key in getting that aircraft raised. The aircraft went through restoration, and this airplane is an airworthy airplane. This flew in the air show, and it's going to fly in the air show this year. It's painted in the markings of Butch O'Hare, one of my favorite aviators. Of course, O'Hare Airport's named after him, one of the early aces of the war. And of course, a de Havilland Mosquito. How did we miss that? So de Havilland Mosquito, this aircraft is owned by Kermit Weeks. It's on loan to us. And interesting, you know, a lot of the wood came from the Wisconsin area to build this aircraft. Anybody who ever saw movies like 633 Squadron or Mosquito Squadron has definitely seen these. The airplane was just fast. I mean, it's just a cool hot rod, if you will, and just a neat airplane used for bomber, attack, reconnaissance, you name it. The British used it. And that's kind of a little overview of the Eagle Hangar.
All right. Well, we do have some questions that came in. So someone wants to know how big the Eagle Hangar is. If I remember correctly, it's about 40,000 square feet.
Yep, that's right.
The doors are, if I remember right, 110 feet across, because the B-17 is like 104 or something like that. So it's just enough to get the 17 in.
Exactly. Yeah, the B-17 will fit in those doors.
Yep. And again, we said it was 1989 when it was dedicated. Someone wanted to know how much it cost to build. And I'm totally going on memory of like 4 point something million dollars, but that could be way off. So don't quote me on that. One of the things, if you've not seen the Eagle Hangar, and Chris, if you can just tip the camera up a little bit, it has a big round roof, so it simulates an old World War II hangar. And then that mural that's against the back wall. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I don't know much about the construction of that mural, but it's really neat. Obviously it's a map of the world, and you go up to these controls and you can push a button, and it basically talks about that theater of operation, and then it lights up. There's lights on it that show you that theater of operation, and you know, it's really pretty cool. It gives you an idea of just how big World War II was. I mean, I think I'm guilty of thinking it was like, oh, it was just in the Pacific and in the European theater, and that's it. Yeah, no, it was everywhere. It's a pretty interesting way to depict it. It's pretty cool.
So, and just as I'll just jump in here, the aircraft that are at the top, that's actually painted on canvas and stretched out across there, and then the cement wall is painted, and that was actually hand painted by Pat Packard, who was the exhibit designer at the time. And I remember Pat being on a scissors lift, and he would spend the entire day up there painting. First they laid it all out, and then they painted it all. And he said it was just like being on a boat. At the end of the day, he'd get down and he had like wobbly legs because the scissors lift would move him back and forth. And it took quite a while for he and there was a young gentleman who was his assistant, and his name escapes me at the moment. But they were up there for months painting the wall, and then luckily the airplanes at the top where they were able to do those down on the ground on canvas.
Well, and an airplane I failed to mention, but it's kind of neat. It's got a cool history. Is the PQ-4, the red one?
Yep.
The PQ was basically an airplane. You could use it as a drone or tow targets with it. So you could do it. I believe you could do it manned or either unmanned as well. And this airplane was actually utilized in wingtip tests, where they were trying to dock the wingtip of this airplane to the wingtip of a DC-3 or C-47 with a special rigging. That rigging is no longer on the airplane, but they had an attachment where you would basically pull ahead of the airplane, slow down, and the culver would slide its wingtip back into the wingtip receiver on the C-47. The pilot for those tests was Bud Anderson. And it was really amazing. Bud came in here, saw our airplane, and looked up the tail number and confirmed it. Yep, this is the one he flew on those wingtip tests. So kind of a little hidden gem in our museum.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And a cute little airplane anyway.
It is. Yeah. I mean, personally, you guys will know if I hit the lottery because I'll be buying a P38. But meantime, that would be a neat airplane to a little more economical than a P38.
Up now, we've looked around the Eagle Hangar. About how many aircraft are in the EAA collection?
So I believe we have 250 airplanes total in the collection. That includes the main museum, which I can go poke my head in the main museum and show you guys what that looks like. Just to give you a little overview, we won't go all the way through it, but I'll just show you. We also have Pioneer Airport across the way, which is an active airport. We have a real grass strip behind the museum. And we offer Young Eagle flights and biplane scenic flights. I really think it's pretty cool that we have a museum where you could come and basically get your kid a free airplane ride. I mean, that's really pretty special. So, you know, our Young Eagle program is all aimed at getting young people interested in aviation. And what's cool is it's not just an airplane ride. You take the airplane ride, but then you get literature on how to go online and take some courses. You take a few online courses and you actually get a receipt to, let me switch this around. You guys rather see the P51 than me. So you take the course and then you get an hour of free flight instruction. So I think that's pretty cool. And what I'll do is I'll just poke my head in the other building here.
Good. Yep.
Just to give you guys an idea.
Sure. And as you're walking, one of the questions that came up is how does EAA recruit pilots for the aircraft?
So the airplanes we do have flying, touring, of course, we have the B17, and she's undergoing some maintenance right now, hoping to have it flying again this summer. And then the B25, we have Berlin Express, and then we have Ford Trimotor. How we recruit pilots, you know, you have to have a lot of to fly something like the B17. You know, a lot of multi-engine tail dragger time. Somebody who's maybe flown the DC-3 a lot, things like that would make good B-17 pilot. Big thing for us is we want, you know, we got to make sure that whoever it is a very safe and conscientious pilot. So let me go in and poke my head. This is the Eagle Hangar.
Okay.
Let's go into, this is the main museum building. Okay, I have the best office in the world. That's my office door right there. So literally right outside the Eagle Hangar. But this is to give you an idea. This is the main museum building. So we have, not sure how many, I don't know how the breakdown is, how many airplanes are in here. We have more airplanes in this building than we do in the Eagle Hangar though. So, and this kind of spans the history of aviation, starting with Wright brothers, going all through air racing, the golden ages, even early space flight. And of course, you know, the lineage of home building and ultralight. So that's a little bit about our museum here.
Awesome.
Very cool. What else can I answer? You guys can't be out of questions yet.
Well, just to follow up on the pilot, if someone is interested in finding out more about becoming a pilot, whether it's with some of the touring aircraft or at Pioneer Airport, they should really contact EAA's flight operations department.
Yes, that would be the best thing. Contact someone like Sean Elliott. You know, as a matter of fact, just for ease, if you shoot me an email if you're interested, my email is really simple. My name is Chris Henry, so it's just C Henry, HENRY, at EAA.org, and I can pass it along to the right people.
Sounds good. Is there aside from the P38, is there another airplane that rates highly in your thoughts?
Well, boy, that's a good question. Here's the problem. It's kind of like if you must be a little bit like if you run a bakery and you have to cook cookies, chocolate chips for a month, and you live and breathe chocolate chip cookies for a month, and you just kind of fall in love with chocolate chip cookies and you love them, and then the next month you have to make like oatmeal raisin, and you're like, geez, I don't know anything about these. I better start learning and start making them. And then you completely fall in love with oatmeal raisin. So that's exactly what this is like. You know, I didn't know a ton about how Army aviation worked when we got to Huey. I'm a B-17 nerd. I love the B-17. And then I just fell in love with the helium. I fell in love with the stories of this brotherhood that existed on these aircraft, just like the B-17. The P-38 was one that was always special because of the Dick and Marge Bong story, which I always think is very powerful. And then, we dive into the Corsair, and now I have to admit I'm eyeing up Corsair models to build. So I think it's basically a disease. You just when you think you get the cure to it, you get hooked on something else. And geez, I don't know. If I had to pick out my favorite, it'd be tough. There's these special moments that I really cherish with just about each airplane in this museum, where we've had veterans or the families of someone who flew this airplane here, and those are where the high points, and I think, of my career are, is when we've reunited veterans and the families of veterans back with the airplane. Like, we had 40 members of Richard Bong's family here, and things like that. That's where it's at for me.
Well, and that's a great transition into the book, The Final Mission, which you have had the opportunity to um, deal with a lot of veterans through the years, and you've put together a special book. And if we can get everything to work here, we'll take a look at that book itself. There we go.
Absolutely. Yeah, so our B-17 Aluminum Overcast tours the country. And we had a really cool opportunity to put as many World War II veterans on as we could the last few years. And, we've all been near these airplanes, and we've heard a veteran telling stories, sharing photos. And, a lot of times we're like, man, I wish I would have wrote that down and recorded it. Well, that's exactly what I did. Every time a veteran would fly with us, a lot of times they would have photo albums, and they would share them with us and let us scan them. And that's how we got pictures like this. These are, these aren't photos you'll find in a other book. These aren't published photos. These are their personal photo albums that they shared with us and said that we could put this book together. And, it was anything to help support the B-17 program and to keep young people interested in it. So this is it. I mean, these are raw, unedited photos. This was a really proud moment for me in 2014. I got to reunite a full 10-man B-17 crew. So we had bombardier all the way back to tail gunner. We had 10 veterans, each from the different positions, fly with us. And I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to actually get this flight to happen today. It's getting tough. And then there you are. There's the book. I will tell you that the proceeds from the book help keep the B-17 flying. It is undergoing repairs. It's $25, $20 if you're a member, I believe. So it is on Amazon. If you have the book and you've read it, please feel free to leave us a review on Amazon. But know that none of the proceeds, none of us felt that the proceeds should go to us. We these aren't our stories. These aren't our legacies. These are the legacies of the heroes that fought in World War II. So all the money goes to the B-17 and keep it flying.
Speaking of the B-17, we mentioned the maintenance. For those who might not be familiar, what exactly has been going on with Aluminum Overcast?
So you've got to be careful how you phrase it. It's not a spar issue, but it is like a shear webbing around the spar area that we found some damage to. It wasn't damage; it was fatigue. And we're having that repaired, and it is in Florida right now undergoing repairs, and it'll be up flying again hopefully this summer is what we're hoping for. So that is got a good group of people, both some volunteer help and some of our staff working side by side, and I have no doubt we're going to see Aluminum Overcast in the air again somewhat soon.
Sounds good. Chris, any final thoughts before we sign off tonight?
I just want to say thank you. I know I don't know who all out there is listening, but if you're with the CAF or any other aviation museum or society that works to preserve aviation history, I just want to say thank you for what you do every day. If you're out there listening and you're just a fan, that's fantastic. I just ask you to consider supporting your local or your favorite organization, or coming out and be part of it. We can always use help. Come out, and I guarantee you it's life-changing. Once you're here, you'll always just kind of wonder, like, why wasn't I doing this sooner? So come on out and be part of it.
Sounds good, Chris. Thank you for taking time tonight to show us around the Eagle Hangar. If you're going to make the trip to Oshkosh for AirVenture, now you know you got to take some time, carve out of your busy schedule, make sure you go see that new Huey exhibit in the Eagle Hangar and all the aircraft that are in the EAA museum. So we'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. Again, don't forget to click the like or subscribe or follow button so we can keep you up to date on future programs. And by the way, for any future programs, if you have an idea of a topic you'd like us to cover or someone you'd like us to talk to, just drop Leah Block a note at media@cafhq.org. Thanks to Chris Henry for being here again tonight. And until the next time, for the Commemorative Air Force, I'm Steve Buss. Have a good night.